Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm Shane Stark. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara Education Fund and the moderator of tonight's forum. The League is sponsoring this forum for the candidates for the Santa Barbara County Supervisor, a 3rd district, and we hope this forum will inform you, the voters, of the candidates' views on issues of interest. I note that the League does not support or oppose any candidate. The restrooms, this is a little tricky, and I may need some guidance.
It's a hike.
My 1 day's experience as a Boy Scout, it'll help. The immediate bathrooms are out of order, so if you need to go to the bathroom, you go out the door to the right. You will spot a corridor-like hallway, and you keep walking until you see a red slate wall. When you see the red slate wall, the bathrooms, 2 of them I believe, will be immediately visible. They're behind the red slate. Behind the red slate wall. They will be accessible and visible. Thanks for your patience. Thank you for attending here. Thank you to Sylvia Uribe, stand Sylvia, who will be translating from English to Spanish.
Del inglés al español.
Yo voy a estar interpretando, así es que si alguien prefiere escuchar este foro en español, con todo gusto pídame, tengo aquí los aparatos.
I just said that I have the headsets if you wish to use them.
Thank you, Sylvia. Headphones are available. Nimmer Productions, and I recognize Larry Nimmer and Gary Atkins for sound, are videotaping this forum. And the video for the forum will be online at the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara website in both English and Spanish. I believe there's some actual dignitaries in the office. I recognize Jonathan Abood, who is a Santa Barbara City College trustee. Any other elected officials or dignitaries, quasi-dignitaries? No. I can get in a plug for the award-winning City College Concert Choir concert this Saturday there's a church at Anapamu and Garden Street. Really good, award-winning, international award-winning City College Concert Choir. There is candidates material available on the table at the back. Over there in the back, identified by candidates, together with League of Women Voters information and voter registration material, which is over there where Lucia Trujillo, our new voter registration material director is, and Beverly King has much League of Women Voters information. They will be happy to assist you. I would note that all are welcome to join the League. We have scholarships available for those who can't afford it, and you're also welcome to make a tax-deductible contribution to the Education Fund, which finances voter education programs. Plenty of people will be happy to assist you. Please refrain, may not be possible, please refrain from outbursts and displays, signs, t-shirts, etc., and hold your applause for the end. This will help us get through more questions and maintain our tone of neutrality and objectivity. I would like now to introduce the candidates, starting from that's be the right? That would be Bob Field, Jay Freeman, Joan Hartman, Karen Jones, and Bruce Porter. They're the 5 candidates who are bold enough to seek office for the 3rd district. Here's how the forum works. I think I should explain the rules briefly. We follow the traditional League of Women Voters process and ground rules, which I believe the candidates have agreed to. There's a modified form. You will note that in order to maintain the tone of civility and the issue-oriented nature of our forum, we do not allow negative comments about other speaker or candidates' character and qualifications. but rather we ask the speakers to address their own qualifications and vision for office and their views on issues facing the county and the 3rd District. Our precision timers will hold up cards with 1 minute and 30-second warnings and stop signs. Please obey them. The candidates will make brief 2-minute opening statements, starting with Mr. Field, and after that, I will ask several questions depending on how much time is available. Each candidate will get to respond, up to 1.5 minutes to respond. However, if you agree with somebody else, you're free to simply say, I agree, for that matter, I disagree, and move on. You don't have to take up the time. We can get in more questions that way. We will rotate the order of responses, assuming my high-tech iPad, which has the matrix of responses, doesn't conk out in the middle there. So, oh, no. Was that a gamma gun? No, it looks like an iPhone.
So animated.
In any event, after we finish the first set of questions, about 45 minutes through, we'll take a break. The audience members can write down some questions on some cards. Joy McKay over there will hand out. Write your questions down on the cards. We will sort them, we'll screen them, and time permitting, we'll ask as many as we can after the break. Here's the advice. Keep it short. Stick to the issues that you care about. If you want a card, just raise your hand. We'll get it to you. Let's get started. Ready? Here's the first question. The 3rd District.
Excuse me.
Intro.
Can I have an intro?
I'm sorry. I did this before. I went right to the question. I forgot the intros. Nobody knew who the candidates were. That's not true. Mr. Field, would you like to start with your opening statement?
Yeah, thank you, Shane, and thanks to all who are here. My name is Bob Field. I'm a 45-plus year resident of California, 18 years in the San Ynez Valley. I consider myself an old-fashioned conservative. I break a bit from the newfangled Republicans and conservative in that I believe our first job is to conserve what is wonderful about this county. And then from there, we move forward and make the county better. More specifically, the rural and agricultural character, even of the semi-urban South Coast, certainly Gaviota, certainly our inland valleys, is a treasure. It's why we live here. We need to conserve that. To make it better, one of the major challenges is to diversify the economy and create better paying jobs so that the middle age range and economic range, people raising kids, can stay here and have rich lives. Fiscally, no question, I'm the most experienced. I believe I'm the most conservative financial guy up here. Regarding the role of government, if I didn't think it had a critical role to play, I wouldn't be here, but I think our government and others spends way too much money on itself and needs to return more to people in the form of effective services and quality infrastructure. My career background is high tech. On this goal of creating better paying jobs in my career, I participated and contributed in the creation of 100,000 private sector jobs or more. I got involved in community work on community plan in the San Ynez Valley, and I may be one of the biggest boosters in the county for local determination of the character of your community. I look forward to the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
Hello, my name is Jay Freeman, though tens of millions of people around the world awkwardly know me better as Sorek due to my work on Cydia, the alternative to the App Store for jailbroken phones. I am the Vice President of the Isla Vista Downtown Business Association, and it is my pleasure to be here today at this forum so close to where I live. I moved here in 1999 when I came to study computer science at the College of Creative Studies, a program for highly motivated students at UCSB, where I'm now part-time faculty. I actually lived just a short walk from here on Stork for most of that time, but as of last year, I live a few blocks north of Freebirds, which is much more convenient for me. I entered the world of politics through my work on the iPhone, which is probably best described as technology activism. I travel around the world giving talks at conferences, conventions, and hackathons about the Digital Millennium Copyright Act and the ethical challenges on all sides of device ownership and software licensing. As part of my work, I serve as a recurring witness at the Library of Congress's triennial exemption rulemakings. However, over the past 2 years, ever since the tragic events of 2014, which occurred here in Isla Vista, I've reallocated much of my time to local politics. I started attending meetings and I never stopped. In addition to special districts such as the Ivy Recreation and Park District and the San Ynez Community Services District, I started attending every meeting of the local Agency Formation Commission, and as far as I can tell, I'm still the only person who regularly attends meetings of the Board of Supervisors. In particularly, I've attended well over 100 meetings about self-governance issues here in Isla Vista, having worked on the Community Services District and being part of an oversight committee for a financial feasibility study that I started and helped fund. I've always pushed hard on the Board of Supervisors as I want them to explicitly agree, yes, we also want IV to be improved in the specific ways the community has asked for. During this time, I have noticed a frustrating pattern where our county leaves major problems to fester until they rot, relying on the people to first self-organize and then demand the help they need to work on complex issues. Whether we are talking about self-governance, groundwater, zoning, or the environment, I want to work from inside the county to solve these problems before they become so painful and expensive.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman.
Thank you, and my thanks to the League for this event and for all the educational activities that you've sponsored. I've been watching the tapes and learning about many of the issues related to the job of supervisor, so I appreciate that. My inspiration to run for supervisor really comes from my family. My mother worked as a nurse, and she also cared for my father, who was a disabled Korean War veteran, and he died of his injuries when I was 12. My sister was a Vietnam vet, and I pursued a PhD and became a college professor. I later earned a law degree and became editor-in-chief of an influential law journal. I spent much of my professional life focused on water issues and worked very hard to develop innovative techniques to protect water quality, as well as designing an innovative private-public partnership that restores water resources throughout coastal Southern California. When I moved to Santa Barbara County, I became active as a community volunteer. I worked for the court-appointed special advocate for foster children, neglected and abused foster children. I also was very much involved in a citizens campaign in Buellton, where voters have the right to determine the character and size of their own community, and worked with people in Goleta to do the same here. When I joined the Planning Commission for Santa Barbara County, I really fought to protect air and water quality from industrial sources of pollution. I also honored community plans and supported workforce and senior housing. As your supervisor, I will focus on public safety, on healthy communities, and keeping the rural character of the Gaviota Coast and the inland valleys. Thank you.
Ms. Jones.
Hello, my name is Karen Jones, and I decided to run for 3rd District Supervisor when I couldn't find anybody good to run. I'm concerned, much like Bob and some of the things other people have said, that there's so much money in politics right now, and both the major parties pick their candidates, and they have large donors, and there seems to be an expectation or some kind of obligation tied to the candidate because of the big money support they have. I'm an independent thinker. I am conservative. Bob thinks he's more conservative. We should have a conservative-thon sometime, maybe. But I believe that people are best able to run their own lives. I don't think government is the solution. I think government is a problem most of the time. And like Jay, I also have noticed that when it comes to government solving problems, that big problems are completely ignored and small problems turn into big problems. And so so much time and energy is wasted, but especially money. And I would like to run as an independent person who will listen to all 3rd District residents. I've lived in the 3rd District longer than any of these people. I'm a native of California. I've spent my whole life in this area, and I think that I understand this area better than the other candidates. I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
And Mr. Porter.
Well, I'm Bruce Porter, and thank you for having us here tonight. Tonight, instead of me, I want to talk about Isla Vista. In all of our minds, Isla Vista is a city. It looks like a city, it feels like a city, and it has the same aspirations of a city. So what if overnight Isla Vista became a city? So think about the wiring diagram of a city government. IV already has its own rec department and police, and what are the missing pieces? I propose we fill in the missing pieces and use existing county personnel and resources to create an Isla Vista government. We put offices right here, and we hold the new staff accountable for the best possible services to residents. A city manager would directly supervise county resources and coordinate with others, such as the rec district. A front desk staff would provide immediate information and help residents get something done. A modest public works staff would provide immediate repairs and carry out small projects. Other functions could include planning and enforcement, just like any other city government. I call my proposal Isla Vista 2.0. IV 2.0 would be a perfect partner for a new community services district. It would help transition and over time pass responsibilities to the CSD. A city council is critical to IV 2.0, so it actually relies on the CSD's power to create a municipal advisory council. This is all about providing higher quality and more timely county services. It's not a new vision from some outsider for the future of IV. IV 2.0 is instead a way to empower Isla Vista residents to leverage county government to create their own vision. So let's put IV 2.0 to work. It's time to stop throwing just a few pennies at Isla Vista, finish the sidewalks, find innovative ways to improve safety. Let's roll up our sleeves and go to work.
Thank you. We're ready to start with our questions. Here's the first one, and the person to answer the question first is Mr. Freeman. First up. The 3rd District, comprising a large unincorporated territory with diverse, complex communities and a history of bellicose, litigious, and complicated controversies, has been said to be ungovernable. And so my question is, how do you propose to govern it? How do you propose to serve and govern the district and all its various communities?
The 3rd District is fascinating. I mean, it starts at the university, it goes all the way up along the coast to Guadalupe, it has a toxic waste dump, it has the Chumash Reservation, it has an Air Force base, it has agriculture, it has tech companies. It's a very good question about the diversity. There's a pattern, however. The 3rd District is about all of the unincorporated communities, and it's about some struggling communities. It's about people who are trying to figure out how to actually get the services they need from the county. And that's something that I've seen the same thing happening here in Isla Vista. I've seen the same thing happening in Los Olivos. I've seen the same thing happening in Vandenberg Village. What we need to have is municipal advisory councils. Municipal advisory councils will allow us to get the feedback that we need from the people in these different areas. A municipal advisory council is a group of people who the board appoints from the location, such as Vandenberg Village, Los Olivos, Isla Vista, some of these other places. I don't have time to list all the wonderful places around here. They meet in the community, and then when they have something they want to present to the board, they can present that to the board. Right now, as it stands, citizens are essentially limited to 3 minutes of influence and public comment, coming to a Board of Supervisors meeting where they spend an entire day waiting from 9 in the morning until sometimes 4 p.m. with a shifting agenda. Municipal Advisory Council will let them meet in their community. It will allow them to get to figure out what needs to be said, and then they could have an organized 20-minute long presentation before the board. That's what we need, municipal advisory councils, and that's how we're going to govern. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Mr. Freeman. Next is Mr. Porter. I have this secret matrix so that we don't, everybody gets a roughly equal opportunity.
This is awesome.
See, I didn't know you could do that on an iPad. You can do stuff. In any event, Yes, Mr. Porter is next.
Okay, thank you. That was a surprise. I'm going to change the question. I don't think the question is how you govern the 3rd District. I think it's how you empower the residents of the 3rd District to improve their lives, to improve the lots of their families, and to improve their communities. Municipal advisory councils are great, and that's a great way to provide feedback and concerns to county government. But county government really needs to decide how better to serve the residents. I mean, that's what county governments are supposed to do. We spend way too much time creating new regulations and new ways to say no to businesses that are trying to start up, families that are trying to improve where they live. We need to find better ways to make sure there's a place for our kids to come back and live after they go to college or go out in the workforce, to build better schools, to provide better opportunities to build businesses and grow businesses and be profitable. That should be the role of government, is empowering and getting out of the way where necessary to allow families and businesses to fulfill their visions and goals.
Thank you. And Ms. Jones is next in this particular.
I would like the question again.
Certainly. It has been said, I'll summarize it. It has been said that Isla Vista, with its many diverse communities and large areas, is ungovernable. And my question is, by what process or how do you propose to serve the district and govern it?
I think the first thing is to be responsive to the constituents. And I agree with a lot of what Jay says about the meetings and that 3-minute comment period. But when you go to meetings, and I used to go when I was your age, Jay, and I've went at different times when there was something pressing facing our community. Tonight, I missed my grandson's 2nd birthday. You know, you have to prioritize, and right now I think what's going on in the 3rd district is worth prioritizing. So, but one thing that happens at these meetings, for those of you who have attended a county board of supervisors meetings, is all the different special interest groups line up and get an award, and they thank the supervisors for giving them money. And I watch and I think, hey, wait a minute, that was my money you gave that guy, and you're doing a photo op and you're actually campaigning during the Board of Supervisors meeting. That's how it looks to me when I go. And then we get our 3 minutes to comment. I think the better place to comment is to the people who actually serve. And we pay for these district offices, and if we have something we need to have addressed in our county, we can go to one of the offices and talk to the people that are representing us. Thank you.
Thank you. The next response, Ms. Hartman.
Thank you. I've spent my entire career working from bottom up rather than command and control. I started doing something called a collaborative rulemaking, where the stakeholders themselves made the rules instead of the bureaucrats. As I mentioned before, worked on the Wetlands Recovery Project, which was a bottom-up public-private partnership. Was trained as a watershed coordinator to do watershed planning. So I agree with everyone else here that it's bottom-up, it's not top-down command and control. The county has put into place community plans, and those are the ways that you can develop rules that fit within the broader general plan framework, but are tailored to your special community. So we recently approved the Eastern Goleta Valley. We have the Santa Ynez Valley Plan. The Isla Vista Master Plan needs some more work. Vandenberg Village doesn't have one. Los Alamos has one. But what happens is that once people work and come together and develop a plan that has legal force to guide their future, then it disappears. There's no way, except in Los Alamos today, for the county to continue to interact with the community. And I know from my experience on the Planning Commission that it's extremely helpful when issues come forward to have community organizations that are legitimate representative that can speak on behalf of the community.
Thank you. And Mr. Field.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I have to fiddle with the question a little bit, too. It used the word govern in the beginning and serve towards the end.
I'm not your elementary school teacher. Feel free to fiddle away.
So I got to tell you, the word govern is awful top-down sounding to me, and it makes me real uncomfortable. So if I can change it to how do we serve you folks, I don't really have anything new to say. I'll just maybe string the beads in a different order. I agree with Ms. Hartman that community plans are where it starts. And maybe it's cityhood. This is a form of community plan. But where the local community lays out its vision that it wants for its character in the future. And those committees that build these plans, I wish had stayed in place. The Los Alamos PAC is still in place. The Santa Ynez Planning Advisory Committee was allowed to die off. But I think it's community involvement, giving you a forum in which you can develop a vision. That takes some work, and then a way for the county to stick with it. Some up here, Mr. Porter, have called community plans religion, called them handcuffs. My wife says the only people they handcuff are developers who don't like your vision and want to build their own vision. I believe in them deeply. I think that's the basis, and then it is serve, serve, serve.
Thank you. Our next question, Ms. Hartman will be our first responder, followed by Mr. Field, Mr. Porter, Mr. Freeman, and Ms. Jones. Just get the order. Do you think that the rebranding, I use the term in air quotes, the rebranding of Isla Vista by IV Safe, which is, as you know, is a committee of county and college officials that was convened by the district attorney and is intended to promote a positive image, public safety and compliance with the law, is an appropriate use of public money. Why or why not? And we'll start that with Ms. Hartman.
Well, I'm going to try to give a broader perspective on that. I had a wonderful opportunity to train with UCIV. This is a student-led organization that is working with the police, the on-campus police, the sheriff, as well as mental health professionals and others on campus to do bottom-up work like we were talking about before, taking responsibility for the safety and transforming the culture at Isla Vista. And the students themselves have organized this. They've, as you see from the papers, Halloween was very good. Deltopia was very good. I had the opportunity to be handing out cookies, condoms, and water, and it was they said, we want you to be safe. We want you to take care of yourself. And that is students taking a major role in transforming the culture in their community. And that's really where I would like to see more effort going, working with the community resources officer and trying to put more resources there. The marketing, I don't think enough attention was given to the people who lived there, and I think that was a real failing with that process.
Thank you. Mr. Field.
Well, in my business career, it was about half finance and half of it was marketing. And the marketing guy wants to say that the idea of a government branding and rebranding things makes me real uncomfortable. I think it's the job of government to talk about what is going on as straight as it can to the best of its ability. I think you try to identify the source of problems in order to locate the source of a cure. Branding is a tip-top outer package issue, and I'm very, very uncomfortable with it.
Thank you. Mr. Porter.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of the first things I did when I announced my candidacy was to learn more about the different parts of the district that I didn't know before. So just the way the timing worked out, I was able to come down to Isla Vista and walk the streets on Halloween night along with some student groups and some of the UCSB police and some of the sheriff's deputies. And then about a couple months later, I went on a ride-along with one of the fire trucks out of the Goleta station that does runs around the county, but also into Isla Vista, and got a feel for a lot of the way that things worked. I have to hand it to a lot of organizations and a lot of people who are working really hard to make Isla Vista more safe. Some of them are functions of government, some of them are the students themselves. I salute all of that, but I do not salute the self-importance of Isla Vista Safe. I think some of its self-promotion is shameless, is a waste of taxpayer money, and that money would have been far better spent on providing true safety upgrades instead of the advertising and the self-aggrandizement. I thought that was bad.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman, you're up.
I'm glad Bruce actually answered the question because the answer is no. It is not an appropriate use of government funds. So the Isla Vista Safe Committee, something that I've been kind of dealing with for a while now. Actually, there was an article in The Independent you may or may not have seen a few weeks ago. Supervisorial candidate blasts Isla Vista Safe Committee. So, and one of the things I've been doing, I've been attending the Board of Supervisors meetings very regularly. The Isla Vista Safe Committee gave its report to the people, to the Board of Supervisors. Its report to the people was trying to describe all of the great things that it did, but it didn't do any of those things. In fact, some of the things that I was doing were in that booklet. It didn't give credit to all of the groups that were doing all of that work, and instead it focused on a marketing campaign, a commercial that was put together, which I will claim is a campaign advertisement that was put together with public funds for a small handful of local politicians. It is something that was just, it is just absolutely not an okay thing to do with public money, to do that particular marketing rebranding campaign. Then, what's more, the advertisements that they were putting forward that weren't the rebranding campaign, all the other marketing work that they were trying to do, was blurring the boundaries between consensual and non-consensual sex. It was essentially going on the line of victim blaming at times. It was just a horrible series of advertisements. And it is something that I was disappointed that there weren't more people who were essentially running for this position that were up there trying to actually combat this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Jones.
I'm with Bob and Jay on this completely. I'm against the government doing advertising, but I don't like hearing ads, hearing the, Bill Cerrone telling me how to raise my kids. I don't like taxpayer money used for any advertising, but this is particularly bad, I think. And I don't have to come down and do a ride-along with the sheriff since I'm from the area and I'm a native. I'm very familiar with IV, and one thing, there's several things that create problems here in IV. One thing is just there's a bunch of kids here, fresh from their parents' house, but the biggest problem that I'm aware of are people who know that this place has a reputation for parties, and IV draws people in. I've promoted concerts down here. I'm familiar with the terrain, and I don't think that the first thing that you want to do is advertise, hey, we're on it, we're doing ads, we're safe. I would like to see money spent toward mental health services. I think there are a lot of struggling young people. That money would be much better spent identifying people with a problem. And we know from the horrible violence, not just of 2 years ago, but even 10 or 12 years ago, a similar incident. It is important that when somebody says, there's something wrong with my roommate, I think this person is hearing voices, I think this person is dangerous, depressed, whatever it is, identify them and have somebody who can do an assessment and actually follow through and make sure that that person gets the help they need.
Thank you. The next question, and the mysterious responder matrix has coughed up. Mrs. Jones. Ms. Jones is as the initial responder, followed by Ms. Hartman, Mr. Field, Mr. Porter, and Mr. Freeman. Here's the question. What do you think are the county's most serious financial challenges? What options to raise revenue or reduce costs do you support to meet those challenges?
This is maybe easier than it sounds. I think, obviously, the unfunded pension problem is a huge problem. And then another problem that we have that we focused on the other evening, we were at a special district forum, and the unfunded or the deferred maintenance on our infrastructure. And I'm thinking, who thought that was a good idea to defer maintenance? I don't know how solid this fact is, but I've read that every dollar you spend toward maintenance saves you $10 in rebuilding something. And I think that that is the most basic responsibility of county government is infrastructure, be it roads. Jay likes to talk about dig once. That's all true. And so there's a really smart way that the county can maintain infrastructure, and maybe they need to stop appealing for votes. Once again, there's just so much corruption and expectation that goes along with the money in politics. And when you look at we all have a computer in our pocket now, just Santa Barbara County employees, they'll give you the list of all of them, how much they make, and it's just really mind-boggling, because you know that those people are going to vote for more government because they love other people's money, and it's just really ridiculous. And I would really be open to making some cuts, getting rid of jobs through attrition, but the deferred maintenance thing isn't going to happen under me. Maintenance is number one.
Thank you. And Ms. Hartman, you're next.
Thank you. It is true that the county has deferred maintenance, but it is also true that we were at economic collapse in 2008. The federal government, the state government, and local governments throughout the nation are suffering from deferred maintenance. And the implication that somehow our county is irresponsible and hasn't maintained its infrastructure is not correct. The county has baseline money that goes to infrastructure, and in addition, 18% more comes out of the growth of property tax revenues each year, and that's just out of the general fund. There are many other grants and opportunities for the county to direct funding to important infrastructure needs. I know when I was paying for college costs for kids, the roof went patched. When I needed, the driveway still needs to be chip sealed, but I thought it was more important and would generate more revenues over time if I took out the lawn. The real infrastructure that is key to our economic development is our water infrastructure. We had our reservoir drain in 100-degree weather and had to go try to find water for the horses who colic if you don't get water. That is the key infrastructure that the county needs to focus on. More locally produced water supplies here, and that's the long-term focus that I think is most critical for our attention in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Field.
To segue from Ms. Hartman, I do hope there's a water question in our future. Somebody, please. But you just asked the financial guy to comment on financial stuff, so I'm sorry. Here it comes. One, there's revenue and there's expenses. On the top end, no new taxes. We are taxed enough. We're not spending the money we have properly. The second issue is, especially people who have not in business before, government types, don't understand the difference between revenue and profit. They think any activity that generates tax income is profitable to the county. If you're buying apples for $1 each and selling them for 50 cents each, you don't need to sell more apples, you need to sell fewer apples. And part of the problem we have in this county is this over-reliance on the two lowest paying industries in America, ag and tourism. We have to diversify and have revenue that comes to the county with a bottom line that is positive, not negative. Budget, every supervisor shows up, okay, we got to go fast, with $10 to $20 million worth of cuts that they could live with, and if you get a match across 2 or 3 of those soups, that thing's dead. 2, salaries, cap existing salaries, divert the money that would have been spent into infrastructure for the buildings these employees work in. Benefits, the employees are only contributing 25% to their pension and medical funds. That's ridiculous. I contributed 100% to mine. Just getting them to contribute 50% would generate $30 million a year, and there's more. Give me a chance, I'll get it done.
Thank you. Mr. Porter, I believe.
Yeah, the problems are massive. For pensions and health benefits, it's about $1 billion in unfunded liabilities. For roads, add another $250 million. And for other county buildings and structures and parks, add another $100 million, all unfunded liabilities. And if you don't maintain them or at least keep up with what you're spending on them, they just get worse and worse and worse, and the liabilities go up more and more and more. We simply have to reshape our budget so that we can at least keep up and not fall further behind in maintaining our home. We all maintain our own homes. The county should be maintaining its home as well. The 18% of set-asides of future growth, that's going to generate $100 million over the next 10 years. Well, that's not even going to keep us up where we should be maintaining currently. Again, we're just going to fall further and further behind. Right now, the county really has no plan to do that. The county does a lot of things because of overregulation of driving revenue out of the county, driving businesses out, that could set up, that could make profits and generate revenue for the county. The Vintners Association have already fingered millions of dollars. The Board of Supervisors takes action and wastes millions of dollars of taxpayer money and things like free giveaways to employees, like the extra holidays they received between Christmas and New Year. We just have to stop that.
Thank you. And Mr. Freeman.
So the issues that of course, it's the unfunded pensions, it's the deferred maintenance. Everyone was great on that. So as far as how we're going to get more funding from this, I mean, everyone, all the conservatives up here are talking about firing people, or talking about decreasing salaries, all that stuff. I mean, I think that there's some structural waste, but I think that we shouldn't be divesting ourselves of our people. I think that's actually what's really hurt us in some cases, of all the people that we fired from the planning department. It's now making it work so slowly. So one thing that I've seen is this, so we're talking about water. I agree with Joan. Water is one of the most important infrastructure pieces that we have, and that's why I've been spending so much time working on water issues. I've been attending meetings the St. Inez Community Service District. I've been going to LAFCO. I've been trying to make certain that we can use something called Proposition 1, which is a water infrastructure bond. I've been going to people in Ballard door to door in order to make certain that they know that this bond is available for them, and making certain that we can actually get this funding clicked into place quickly. This is something that, again, I've been attending meetings of all these things, trying to make stuff happen. That's what I do. Another one that I've seen come up is a lack of grant opportunities. So there was a $40 million grant that came up for a county jail. Now, maybe you don't want a jail, but there was an opportunity to change the grant to something else. It came before the Board of Supervisors, and they turned the money down. Why? Because it was going to cost $700,000 somehow in order to send one letter to the grant board. We need to figure out how to get somebody to be able to just send letters quickly. But there, I was also at that Board of Supervisors meeting. I was also speaking on that issue. Where is everyone?
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. You ended on a downbeat. That's good. That's good. Thank you. Here's the next question. And we'll start this question with Mr. Porter, followed by Ms. Jones, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Field, and Ms. Hartman. Okay? Here's the question. This is about the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. What is your view of CEQA? That is, do you see this law as an impediment to progress or a valuable informational tool? Are there any changes to the law or the way that it's administered that you support?
Yes, CEQA has been an extremely valuable tool to implement national environmental policy for many, many years. And if we didn't have CEQA, we'd have to have some other way to protect our environment. And I was in the Corps of Engineers for 25 years and had a lot of positions that required me to either personally or through an organization help to protect the environment. It wasn't CEQA because it wasn't in California most of the time, and it was on federal lands, but still the idea is the same. We have to be able to protect our environment, protect endangered species for the future of all of humankind. Having said that, though, CEQA is sometimes abused by people who are trying to use it for political purposes as opposed to using it for environmental purposes. So if anything, I would fiddle with it a little bit around the edges just to make sure that it wasn't subject to abuse and wasn't used as a political tool. But overall, a very solid act and something that California needs.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
I'm not familiar with the act, but I am familiar with people using things as political tools, and I think that happens a lot with environmental issues. I think it's important to always, for me, I think the owner of the land is usually the best steward, and I think that it's important to do responsible development, so you won't hear me talking about business opportunities and we've got to quickly develop things, and on the other hand, talk about protecting the environment. I am for once again, I'm the only native up here. I get California. I love it. I love the natural rural beauty of the place I live, and that's what motivates me to run. And I don't need a law to tell me how to take care of my property. But I would like to learn more about it because I definitely think that it will be used as a political tool. I think that's what laws are for.
Thank you.
Oh, they shouldn't be for that, just for the record. I'm just saying that that's what happens. People use laws to punish their political enemies.
Got it. Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
So There's something interesting about CEQA, which is that every single action that a board takes, you have to go and do this check in order to make certain that it does or does not have anything to do with CEQA. If you go and you look at an agenda of any meeting, you'll see that 20% of the paper that they're just distributing for that agenda ends up going to ends up going towards an action that is recommended from the staff, which is to declare that this action has nothing to do with CEQA. There's some minor edits that we really need to make to CEQA in order to allow us to drop all of the, if I'm just hearing an informational item, I shouldn't have to declare that this has nothing to do with CEQA. And this is something that but the concept is definitely something that we want. I mean, the concept is something to make certain that any action that is going through has, that actually could have some kind of environmental impact, that we've actually taken a look at it. I definitely want that, but there's the way that the law is actually structured is very poor.
Thank you. Mr. Field.
I guess I could add something, but I want to take the opportunity for the first time in this series of debates to say that I agree with Mr. Porter.
Is that it?
That's it.
Ooh, good one. That's Plan B. And Ms. Hartman.
Thank you. The National Environmental Policy Act, as well as CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, were designed with environmental impact statements and environmental impact reports, respectively, to control administrative agencies. We live in a government system where we can elect the executive, we can elect the legislature, the judiciary is appointed, but administrative agencies function without a lot of oversight. So the environmental impact statement and report is a way that the agencies have a responsibility to look at the impacts of their actions, their projects, on the quality of the human environment. And they have to go through and look at a whole number of different things, whether it be traffic, whether it be endangered species, water, air. And that's how we get information out to the public about the impacts of agency actions. CEQA is a little more, it's tighter, it has more requirements than NEPA on private projects, but I'm very much in favor of both EIR and EIS because it holds administrative agencies accountable to the people they serve.
Thank you. We shall move on to the next question. I think I'm going to revert to the alphabetical order on this because I only fit the magic matrix on one page. Math, not strong suit. Here's the question. What are the top 3 things that you think would improve the quality of life in Isla Vista, and how can they be accomplished? If you can only get through 1 or 2, that's okay, but the top 3 things.
Yeah, first I want to take this second to say how much I appreciate this format, the number of questions, the variety of questions, the chance that you're going to ask. We've gone to a forum, we were asked 2 questions, we got one in our future that's got 3. Thank you, thank you. Isla Vista, to me, back to we've got to push control down, control the character of your community to Isla Vista. Your master plan is floundering like the Sandy Ynez Valley Community Plan was. I think that needs to be revived, recharged, get a common vision for what you want to see here. Number 2, I think the CSD is a terrific idea. My concern about it is that there will be people who will step up with the commitment and the skills to do it effectively. I think Jay is well above that hurdle. I hope there's 4 others. And finally, I'll end with a soft compliment. I think UC Santa Barbara has done a pretty good job, but I can't say better than pretty good. And a phrase from some old brainy group from years ago, you don't have to be sick to get better. I think the university can be better in helping Isla Vista be better.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
Number 1, we need to figure out how to get more police here. When we've doubled the number of I don't mean like more police like looming. I mean, we've doubled the population and we've decreased the number of police. Our police department, the Isla Vista Foot Patrol, was designed to be a community policing force, wandering through the people, getting to know everyone, being very friendly. And they now say that they are a reactive agency only. They do not have the resources to do the community policing that they've always wanted to do. We need to figure out how to get them back to the ability to have community policing. We need to have a municipal advisory council. There are way too many things that go before the Board of Supervisors that we do not have a very good say on. The population here is not able to go during 9 to 5 during a meeting in order to essentially spend all day trying to figure out how to have 3 minutes of commentary. We need to have the opportunity to meet in Isla Vista and then send representatives to the Board of Supervisors in order to have them give detailed, structured presentations on the things that we need. And finally, one of our biggest issues here in Isla Vista is landlord complaints. What we need to have is essentially what San Francisco has. We need to have a rent board. It's a mechanism by which if there is some kind of issue going on at your apartment, if there's a contract that's been violated, there's a board you can go to that has teeth, not just a mediation board, but something you can go to that is able to give you a temporary reduction in your rent if required, something that can actually solve the problems that we have with tenants here in Isla Vista.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman.
I agree with Jay that safety is first and foremost a major concern. In Isla Vista, there's 7% of the population, but 25% of the crime. There are assaults on women, burglaries, and so we really need to focus on safety. I as a parent of a college student earlier in my life, the last thing I want to do is send my child off to college and have to worry about their safety. I think Isla Vista is working on this issue, but it's one that we haven't fully addressed. I think there are some innovative ways. I have a student intern working with me from UCSB developing an app that a woman can carry walking home and press a button, and that would be GPS and would be a way to call the police or someone to escort or to come to their rescue. So I think there are many different things we can do for safety in addition to increasing the community resource officers. I agree with Jay that governance is also a very key issue for Isla Vista. It's really the size of a city. It doesn't have the revenues that a city might have, so it needs to have more legitimate ways for people to be involved. It is the most happening place in the county in terms of investment, involvement, excitement. The other thing that we need in Isla Vista is infrastructure. And just quickly, the infrastructure doesn't match the quality of the natural environment or the people there.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
I agree with probably everything that's been said, and I also like the CSD. The grand jury recommended it in 2003. It's 13 years later. So to Jay's point, things don't happen quickly enough. I also agree with the rental board. I've been to parties, I've been to concerts, I've been in these houses, and slumlord maybe is not harsh enough. The condition of a lot of these places, you can say, oh, well, the kids, they don't care, they don't take care of it. But they move into really grody places for a lot of money, and there doesn't seem to be accountability there with the landlords. You have a responsibility as a landlord, and somebody needs to make sure that things are enforced. And so I like Jay's idea.
Thank you. And Mr. Porter.
Yeah, certainly there's lots of great ideas, and safety is number one, but that's been worked over pretty well, so let me do some others here. First of all, my proposal for Isla Vista 2.0 I think is a great start, and that is if any resident of Isla Vista is having an issue about quality of life or anything else, right now where do they go? Maybe the Foot Patrol or maybe Doreen Farr's assistant here, but if there was a city government here, if there was a city hall, that's where you would go. There'd be a couple people at the front desk that either could help you or tell you where to go. That would be a huge improvement in quality of life here. Another is parking. That hasn't been talked about, but I mean, it was unbelievable that the county staff went to the Board of Supervisors or the Planning Commission and said parking's not an issue in Isla Vista. Well, holy mackerel. I mean, that's just crazy. So we really need to work really hard on parking, figure out some sort of a system to control it and permit it. Otherwise, Isla Vista is going to have trouble really doing a lot of things. And the last thing is indeed infrastructure. Right now, we're only building sidewalks at $200,000 a year. There's $4 million to go. That means they won't be finished in 20 years. Well, that's also crazy. We need to quit throwing pennies at Isla Vista and belly up to the bar and make it the great community it should be.
Thank you. Larry, can we get one more question in before the break? Next question, and we'll revert to the order with Mr. Freeman first, followed by Mr. Porter, Ms. Jones, Ms. Hartman, and Mr. Field. What should the county do regarding homeless, mentally ill, and addicted persons? What changes in policy, if any, do you support?
So I've been very happy with the work that was done here on Pendola Lofts, or Pescadero Lofts, sorry. Pescadero Lofts. It's a housing first project that was put into place. The purpose of it is to give homeless people homes. And then you can lift them up and you can help them get jobs. That is something that we need to see more of throughout the county. It's something that's worked very well. There are a number of people who've lived here for a very long time that I've known actually since I got here in 1999 who are doing a lot better now, and it's very good. Another thing is we need to support the Office of Behavioral Wellness, the recently renamed Office of Mental Health and Alcohol and Drug Services. That office is working on a program which coordinates with the Sheriff's Department such that anytime somebody gets picked up, the question first is asked, wait, is this actually a public safety issue? Is this something where I should have an officer be dealing with the situation, or is this something where we should send in a public health officer? Is this something where we should be sending in mental health services? And that's something that's made some differences in some places throughout the county, but it's something that we're bringing up the budget workshops, and they need more support. And so that's something that I would definitely be looking at trying to fix up.
Thank you. Mr. Porter, hold on for 1 second. If you have questions that you want to ask and haven't written them down, now would be a good time to write them down on the card so we can sort them at the break and ask them. Mr. Porter.
Yeah, you bet. At every one of these meetings, I say that my top 3 priorities are public safety, infrastructure, and helping those who truly can't help themselves. And oftentimes it is mental health. So that's kind of key to this question right here. And if you break the homeless into categories, there are those who choose that as a lifestyle. Not very many, but some do. And they just need to live that lifestyle if that's what they want, but not create a safety issue. A lot of homelessness is really a mental health issue. Mental health in this county is severely underfunded. The behavioral, I forget the name of the department, the behavioral department is, for years, suffered from a lack of leadership and poor organization. And that's despite the fact that 9 of the 15 top highest paying jobs in the county are in that department. So the money is just not being spent where it should. Finally, people who are homeless just because of circumstances, we definitely need to be able to connect them with the agencies, be they nonprofits or faith-based, to get them someplace temporarily until they can get their feet back on the ground. And again, I think of my idea of an Isla Vista 2.0, a city hall, where somebody could go and seek assistance to get to the right place, again, would be a long way to solving a little piece of this problem.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, you up?
Well, I'm happy to go.
No,
I think of everybody at this table, I don't think it, I know it. I have the most experience working in mental health. And most of the people who are homeless do have some sort of mental health problem. There are people who, through a set of circumstances, are temporarily homeless, but there are friends, churches, a lot of different organizations to help those people, and putting them in touch with them is obviously the right thing to do. But we also have homeless people who have drug and alcohol problems, and we have many homeless people who are psychotic, literally. They just don't have mental health problems. They are psychotic. And because I'm a native of California, I have watched, starting with the state hospital systems being closed down, moving people into the community, And now it seems like we went the other way where we need to have some institutions maybe brought back. But the first thing that I would do would be to have a team of people who could do evaluations and determine why this person is homeless. And it's very important, if this person is from Iowa, they may have a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, friends, family. And we need to reconnect people with their real home, where their home is, and give them an opportunity to return. Because the County of Santa Barbara can't take care of the whole country. This is a nice place to live, but sometimes people need to go home.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman?
Thank you. There are at least 3 different reasons or types of homeless, and as Mr. Porter mentioned, there are the people who choose to be homeless, and for those who work in the homeless field, those people give everyone else kind of a bad name. They're just traveling through. The people who have mental health problems or substance abuse problems, the thinking has changed radically. It used to be they had to get the treatment and then they could get a home. Now it's housing first, wraparound treatment. In Santa Barbara County, we know we have about 150 people who rotate into the mental health system and into the jail system, and those small number of people command a disproportionately large number of the resources. And so we could save money if we would get them housed and treated with wraparound treatment for about 18 to 24 months, and they really can turn their lives around. But we also have veterans who are homeless, and there's a new program, a new landlord liaison program that works with landlords and says, we'll give 24-hour call if there's any problem. In return, the landlord will reduce the requirements to get into an apartment, the references, the payments, etc. Then there are people who are homeless not because of mental health or substance abuse, but because they're evicted. We have too many women and children living in cars, going on sofas. That requires a different approach.
Thank you. And Mr. Field?
So I'm going to match Karen Jones' objectivity and candor by saying I probably know the least about this subject of anybody up here. Give me credit for seeing that I know what I don't know. I'm not a complete idiot on the issue, but it's pretty hard to add to what these 4 have said. I think the issue of starting with the people who are genuinely troubled, who have mental health issues, drug addiction issues, is where we start. And the veterans who are in that group are maybe first in line within that group. And then just move up the ladder to the best of our ability. And I don't know the people in the rebranded behavioral health department. So I can't comment on the effectiveness of their management or their management of their budget. That's something that I think needs to be looked at. But I just have to tell you honestly that if elected, this is on my list of things to learn more about.
Thanks. Larry, do you want to take a break, or should we squeeze in one more question? Do you want to change the tape? All right, let's take a break. We'll sort the questions. We still have time if you've got write them down on a card. We will commence again, probably around 10 minutes as soon as we get the questions sorted. Thank you very much. The candidates are assembled, and our world-famous question sorters are sorting the questions, and we'll have some up presently. So as not to waste time, we have more questions that are pre-printed. And let me count. The last question, Mr. Freeman started. Was that correct?
That was the second one.
Mr. Ms. Hartman, did you start the last question?
I went 4th on that.
I remember I went last because I said I didn't know what I was talking about.
This is like this Mr. Nobody Ford ad where they imitate Abbott and Costello. Is that right? Thank you. All right, here's the first question. And we will start with, did we ascertain who got first last? Okay, I'm going to start with Mr. Porter. That sounds good. What is the most pressing water issue in the 3rd District? Beyond or more specific than our lack of the water?
Can you read it again, please?
Sure. What is the most pressing water issue in the district besides the fact we don't have enough of it?
Well, that's kind of the core of the issue, but I think being able to manage water cycles. You know, we go through a cycle of El Niños, and we get a lot of water, and then we go through cycles of drought. So we need to have a better comprehensive system of managing water through all of those cycles. So it's going to be some kind of a combination of a number of things. One is going to be better water storage. All that water we get in some years, how do we store it? How do we store it above ground, and how do we make sure we store it in underground aquifers? Right now, a lot of it just runs out into the ocean, and you can't stop all of it, but we need to find some way to capture more of that. Desalination is certainly one thing we need to be doing to help us through these cycles. In some years, we may not need any desalination at all, maybe just enough to keep the plants going. But that's got to be a piece that to be there and be ready to work at maximum efficiency when we do need it through the cycles. And then the final thing is we have to keep working on conservation through all the cycles because we don't know exactly when the tops and the bottoms are going to be. So as we continue to be more efficient with all of the various parts of our home and how we take care of our yards or even what we have in our yards, the conservation in agriculture, the conservation piece has to be the other big piece of this system that we create.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
This is a very clear thing to me. As a native Californian, I've lived through these cycles that Bruce has read about and studied, and so most of us who are natives understand the conservation. But I think reckless development should be a part of the equation. We had a 12-story addition, a huge tower built in the middle of our beautiful little rural valley, and there are candidates who are running that want to give more opportunity for that kind of reckless development that is so irresponsible. And it just boggles my mind why, while all of us, and particularly the natives who understand the drought cycle, and we know that this is something we can expect, and that El Niños are very rare, even when the media promises there's one, we're still conserving our water. And to think that there's 12 floors of people showering and flushing toilets, and when you look at the plan, I left a map on the back table. I don't know if any of you saw it, but there's a plan to put 4.5 million feet of retail space. Be wary of anybody that is hooked up with a Chamber of Commerce that really wants to bring jobs to our valley. We don't want it.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
So there's a set of issues that I think are relevant to bring up here. It's difficult always to pull out the top issue on anything. One thing I don't think people realize quite yet is, so I was at a meeting of the San Ynez River Water Conservation District last week, and there's a situation going on right now where they've noticed that the Lake Kachuma has been crediting evaporation against them, but not crediting it against anyone else. And so now they are actually filing a complaint with the Regional Water Board in order to get water given back to them, and it's turning into water wars. There's a few 100,000 acre feet of water that might end up getting diverted from the state water that we finally started coming, stop going down to Lake Kachuma. So I think that we really need to look at the regional, all the different water components, all the different districts, and try to figure out who's getting water from where. And we also have got the situation going on with the regional water plant that was in Solvang, which was supposed to be the regional water plant, but they don't really want to be the regional water plant, and they don't want to spend the time in order to actually build out any of the reuse infrastructure. And it's reuse, by the way, that's allowing those people to build the 12-story tall building. They've got it's the Kachuma Reservation, and they've got the tertiary water reuse plant. We need to have more tertiary water reuse plants in the area. We need to actually set up the new plants that they're trying to put in San Ynez, and we need to figure out all of our water crediting issues. And it's a very complicated thing that I would have no hope of trying to get to do in a minute 30. Thank you.
Mr. Field.
Well, I hope the fact that everybody else answered a slightly different question that was asked will give me a little bit of slack. The question was, aside from water quality, what are the issues? I'll do my best to stick to that. And it's different basin by basin and even where you are in the basin. I've been involved in public and private water systems for 20 years. For the last 15, I've been president of a mutual water company in the Santa Ynez Valley. I understand water quality because you have to. We spend about 10% of our revenue testing the quality of our water. In the valley, there's a problem, a declared problem. Did I show my attitude? Regarding Chrome-6 in the waters. This is the problem made famous by Aaron Brockovich, or was it Julia Roberts? I get them confused. So the state has decided with a federal level of 100 parts per billion that their level of 50 parts per billion was way too high, and we're now down to 10 parts per billion. It's going to cost billions of dollars for small water companies in California to comply. Hopefully people will come to their senses. Most of the treatment requires that you waste water while trying to treat the water and then put the Chrome-6 right back in the ground. I can't avoid the quantity issue. I think the number one thing we can do is clean up our wastewater. I think Jay's a bit confused about solving. It's a wastewater plant, not a water treatment plant. But we can clean up our wastewater. South Coast, huge opportunity, and best solution, I think, is to re-inject it into the aquifer. Out of time? Thanks.
And Ms. Hartman.
Thank you. Thank you. If anybody's been by Lake Cachuma, you can see that it's there's not much there. There's not much coming from state water, and there's not much coming from runoff from the mountains. We also have 3 groundwater basins in the county that are in overdraft, in Los Alamos, in the Santa Ynez Valley, and then outside of the 3rd District in Kiama. That's the worst, where they're actually having to bring in water for livestock, and they're experiencing subsidence. They're taking water out of the groundwater much faster than it can recharge. So water is a critical issue for us in Santa Barbara County. The good news is that there are approaches to this. It's already been mentioned that efficiency is a key way to get more water. State rules are coming down that are going to require far more efficiencies. There's also stormwater capture. Los Angeles County is doing an enormous amount to capture stormwater. We have a brilliant person in Santa Barbara County, Art Ludwig. He's figuring out how to do this here. The other approach, as mentioned, is water reclamation. Orange County has a reclamation plant that serves 850,000 people. It's state-of-the-art, the most sophisticated in the world. So we've got examples right here. We also have a $7 billion bond that was passed in 2014. We have the county that's the lead water agency but has not taken a very aggressive role in bringing everyone together to figure out how to manage water regionally.
Thank you. Let's go to one of the audience questions. Does Isla Vista need new revenue streams, and if so, what do you propose? Let's go with Ms. Jones first, followed by Ms. Hartman, Mr. Field, Mr. Porter, and Mr. Freeman.
Before I answer that question, I would like to thank the gentleman who gave me some advice on the break. The people who live in Isla Vista are men and women. They are not children. And I have a tendency to call people all the way up to 40 years old kids. And that gentleman made a very good point. You are responsible adults that live here, and I want to acknowledge that. As far as the new revenue streams, I'm Dr. No. I think we got a spending problem. I don't think we have a money problem. So I think that that's not something, that would not be the first thing I would look for, is ways to squeeze more money out of people.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman.
Thank you. Yes, Isla Vista, as I said earlier, has fabulous natural environment, unmatched human talent, brain trust, but it has an infrastructure that both college buildings, university buildings, and particularly in Isla Vista, that doesn't match the needs. When the redevelopment agency went out of business, that really left Isla Vista in a lurch. Fortunately, there is a new program that the state legislature passed last year, late last year, the Enhanced Financed Infrastructure District. This would allow the university, the county, a CSD, if it is formed, to combine revenue streams, both fees, taxes, loans, as well as capturing the property growth tax increment. That's the goose that lays the golden egg. So improvements that improve property values, the increase in the property value can be put back into this fund. And I think that's the future. I attended a wonderful, Jay was there too and actually made some great maps for it, placemaking workshop about the kinds of improvements, lighting, sidewalks, parks, that people in Isla Vista have a vision for what they'd like to do that would make it a world-class city to go along with the world-class university.
Thank you. Mr. Field.
Okay, so here you get a shot at seeing what I do when I have internal conflict. The no new taxes thing has conflicted with the utility tax necessary to have your CSD get something done. So I'm going to go with the utility tax and give you an efficient CSD. So there's revenue. It's not huge, but I think you can use it to make improvements in Isla Vista. The next step up, I have to go back and repeat what I said before. It's not revenue, it's net revenue. We have to stop doing things that we're losing money on and start, as a county, and start doing things that we make money on. I think I recall accurately that the revenue, that is the tax money to the county out of Isla Vista, is about $8 million a year. The amount of money coming back into Isla Vista in form of services is about $16 million a year. We need to do something to turn those numbers around or at least close the gap. I think the idea that Isla Vista can be a city in the short term is just a pipe dream, and I suggest that you don't fall for it. It's a dream that you cannot achieve in a reasonable amount of time. You should look at smaller, achievable steps. If you shoot the moon, you might not end up with anything. Thanks.
Thank you. No, Mr. Freeman, did you?
I don't think I'm next. I'm last, aren't I?
Yes.
Oh, it is. I'm last. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Last is up.
Okay, great. Oh,
You did or didn't?
okay.
Yeah, no, yes, it does. It does for my own sense of orderliness, such as it is. Mr. Porter is indeed up.
Okay, thank you. I think the question's a little bit upside down. I mean, we're really worried about revenue for Isla Vista if we were trying to make it a city to make sure all the way the numbers balance out. But I think it's more important about, are there opportunities for retail shopping or doing other things inside Isla Vista that the residents really need? Right now, I think most of the residents, or many of the residents, beyond just very basic necessities, wind up needing to travel very long distances to go find the things that they need and want. For example, I always forget the name of it, but the Camino Real Marketplace, is that the name of it? Trying to get there and get the things that you need and get back here to Isla Vista, well, that's a trip. So I would, instead of just trying to generate revenue, I would say, what do we need in Isla Vista for the residents? And work for it that way, and then provide opportunities for business to see if they want to open their doors here. And that would eventually generate revenue, but it should be about the wants and the needs of the residents of Isla Vista.
Thank you. Now you get to go, Mr. Freeman.
I mean, first 10 seconds, I'm just going to say Solvang it's a wastewater treatment plant, but you reuse the water in order to actually then fill your toilets and coolants, and that's why I was saying all that. So enhanced infrastructure funding districts are interesting. The redevelopment agency is where we got a lot of our funds that we had here in Isla Vista for a long time. I've actually got a map, I love maps, from the master plan, which has Isla Vista as a box down here. The redevelopment agency they had given us at the time included Stork Ranch. Now, what is a redevelopment agency? A redevelopment agency is a tax increment financing vehicle, which is the same thing, the same funding mechanism as these new EIFDs, which takes funding from an area and then as it gets developed and fixed and redirects it towards more development. We were essentially taking all of the money that was being constructed in Stork Ranch, which when they started was just a field, and which by the time we tore down these redevelopment agencies were many million-dollar homes in order to do all of our stuff in Isla Vista. So I'm not entirely certain we can just use redevelopment agencies or even any of the new versions of this like revitalization or EIFDs to fix this. But I actually agree with Bob here in the sense that we kind of need to think about this in terms of net revenue. We need to think about figuring out how to decrease costs in some cases more than necessarily trying to come up with more revenue. If we were to come up with more revenue, I would say that there's a tax bond that the Ivy Recreation Park District is currently looking at, which, sorry, not a tax that the Ivy Recreation Park District is looking at, which would replace an existing bond, which is great because it wouldn't actually cause any increases in rents, something we should look at, but it's, yeah, revenue, we need to decrease cost.
Thank you. Actually, I'm next going to combine the next, that's it on next question, right? I'm going to combine the next audience question with one that I was going to ask. We had pre-printed, which is what do you say to people that are angry and frustrated and blame government, and what do you say to young people who don't have much hope for the future? The question is asked is more local in nature. What will you do as supervisor to keep the talented UCSB graduates here in Santa Barbara County? Right now, the cost of housing and availability is prohibitive to keeping young professionals here. And let's start with Mr. My math skills have eroded to the vanishing point here. Let's start with Mr. Porter. How's that? Mr. Porter, followed by Mr. Jones, Ms. Jones, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Field, Ms. Hartman.
Yeah, thank you. I've actually published a position paper on this, and I call it a new economic development plan with an economic development corridor. Started with a conversation I was having with one of the vice chancellors from UCSB who was talking about all the new businesses that would begin spinning out of, and they always have, but increasingly so, spinning out of all the research that goes on here at UCSB. And he was lamenting that as you've seen Goleta get built out, a lot of those industries and then the kids, the recent graduates that would be working in them wind up going to Arizona or Texas or someplace like that because it's just too expensive to live on the South Coast and there's no industrial space left anyway. So I was thinking, well, why would they go to Texas or Arizona instead of someplace else in Santa Barbara County? Why not Lompoc or Santa Maria or Buellton? They have a lot more space up there. It's also a beautiful place to live. Graduates from UCSB wouldn't have to move someplace out of state. They could stay someplace that they love a lot. And those communities need better jobs, good jobs to improve their own communities. It would be a win-win-win for everybody. And the county can't make it happen, county government can't make it happen, but they can sure facilitate it. Maybe even work with the cities to provide some sort of incentives for those businesses to settle down and for new UCSB graduates to participate in them. I think it's a great plan, one that would work very well, and something that I would try to implement.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
The only jobs that government creates are government jobs. And that's why we have this big mess with these unfunded retirements. I think the best thing that the government can do is to provide the infrastructure, to maintain the roads, to make sure that we have good internet. I mean, Jay, this is your wheelhouse and Bob's, but I mean, dang, that buffering, what's going on? When we moved to Santa Ynez, I can remember how everybody came to our house to look at our dial-up, and they were like, can I look up people I went to high school with? This place, it seems so cutting edge in some ways, and it seems so backward in others. So I agree with Jay, with Bob, probably with you too, Joan. I think I agree with everybody from here on down. But I think it's really important that government provides these services so people can be innovative and people can come up with their own jobs. Government creates government jobs.
Thank you. I would like to announce at this point the League of Women Voters is claiming credit for bringing peace to the 3rd District. And Mr. Freeman is next.
So I live in something of a demographic valley. I'm 34 years old, and I know a lot of people who are under the age of 25, a few people who are between 25 and 28. I know a lot of people who are over 45, a lot of people over 50. I know almost nobody between the ages of 28 and 45. And the reason why is not because we can't find jobs. The reason why is because we can't find housing. I know a lot of companies that have been started that have been running in the area, and they move to places where they can have where the people that they're trying to hire can have cheaper housing. We need to figure out how to have more housing in the area. Now, you say that, and people are like, "Oh no, you're gonna just build large quantities of suburbs all over the place. You're gonna take over all these empty spaces the few that we have left in Goleta, because they actually built all of them up now, and you're gonna stick housing all over them." No, we need to figure out how to build up in the places where the density is relevant. That'll also allow us, if we do that intelligently and we have enough mixed-use housing, that'll also allow us to decrease our transit needs. And there are all sorts of great benefits that come from that. One specific thing is, but this is more of a Goleta thing, is trying to get, but it's nearby to here, if we could convince Goleta to allow second units on behind houses, that's something that could make a big difference to the housing stock as well. But we need more housing. We need to figure out how to connect that housing into places where it's beneficial to the companies that want to hire these people that are here. We need to figure out how to solve that problem.
Thank you. That would be, I think Mr. Field is that right?
This is like an IQ test. I think it's me.
Yeah. I should tell you that I forget something every day, starting with the bad stuff.
So you guys should vote for the one of us who can keep track of this. Okay, 90 seconds. Good Lord. Huge problem in the county. I think socially, culturally, it is the #1 problem in this county, and Jay nailed it. People in the middle ages, middle incomes, with kids in schools are just getting wrecked by this county. They're being driven out of this county. I got to disagree with Mr. Porter on this one. You cannot point your finger somewhere and call it an economic opportunity corridor. It's not just a question of building affordable housing someplace. It's got to be someplace that people want to live, especially people from 25 to, what was your number, who want to put in, a full day's work and go out on the town and have some fun. Places where young couples want to raise their kids. And I'm going to get yelled at in the North County, but the responsibility for business success is between the business community and the cities. The county's in charge of ag lands, open space, infrastructure, highways between us. It's the business community and the cities that create business success. And Lompoc and Santa Maria cities have kind of made a mess of things. So it's not just a question of declaring that we want to have housing there because it's cheaper. This is in business terms for the North County, it's a turnaround. We've got to build the foundation up. We've got to have better schools, better educated workers, places where young, upwardly mobile people want to work. Because right now we're set up where people who have get up and go, get up and go.
Okay, you're up.
Thank you. Am I on? Up and on. Housing is a huge problem for everyone I talk to, whether it be firefighters and policemen who can't get here to protect us because they live far away and have to get through congestion, employers who are trying to train and then lose people once they've got them trained, nonprofits that are trying to bring in new blood and creative ideas, and they can't, the people can't afford housing here. And our own children can't afford to stay because housing is so expensive. But it's not, again, only Santa Barbara County that's facing this. Boston, New York, San Francisco. It's a problem that isn't just here. I think there are a couple of things. One is we don't need more mansions and McMansions. We need workforce housing. We need rental housing. We don't want condo conversions. We want to enhance existing stock. We don't want to just put up high-rises and lose the character that we have. More mixed-use housing is also important. Rona Barrett's Golden Inn employer housing, UCSB is doing more, providing more housing for staff and faculty faculty. I think there's also a lot more we can do in terms of financing and employers. My daughter works in San Francisco. After 2 years, they can get a down payment of only 10%. They can extend mortgage rates over 40 years, and that helps a great deal. I think there's also, you can pull money together. I'll stop.
Thank you. Are we on to the next question? I think we are. Next question, another audience question. This is a good one. How would you solve Isla Vista's parking problem?
You're looking at us.
I have no solution to Isla Vista's parking. Except for this lot here, I have never been able to find a parking place in Isla Vista. Let's start with Ms. Hartman, followed by Mr. Field, Mr. Porter, Mr. Freeman, and Ms. Jones.
Thank you. This issue came to the Planning Commission when I was a planning commissioner, and the first time it came to us, we sent it back to Isla Vista because they were having the hearings when students were away on break and didn't even have an opportunity to participate in the process. So we sent it back and said, planning staff, hold the meeting in the community. The community was extremely engaged and persuasive that Public Works did not use a very good methodology in documenting the extent of the problem. They didn't even count correctly how many existing parking places there are, and they didn't adequately break down different areas so that we had a better sense of where the parking problems were. The issue is whether we should have a parking permit program, and part of that comes from the Coastal Commission that wants beach access there. Part of it is that staff from UCSB is parking at Isla Vista during the day because they don't have easy parking on campus. So there are lots of different aspects to this problem. A permit system, long-term parking for students that's inexpensive, encouraging students not to bring cars, but that means better transit, and right now Uber and things are very expensive. So there's many different dimensions to this problem.
Thank you. Mr. Field?
Yeah, another moment of candor. I don't know how you solve this problem, which doesn't mean that it's not solvable. In San Ynez and Los Olivos, we found by taking an inventory of spaces and recalibrating what was really there were about 10% more spaces if we just used the space, you know, the way it's designed to be used. That's not going to solve the problem, but that helps. We also have tried, without complete success, to get the county's Public Works Department to stop giving away right-of-ways because they, quote, are not being used. They turn what could be parking space over to the private property owner because it's not being used. Well, you know, paint some stripes on it and maybe someone will park there. So we've had to struggle with the Public Works giving away potential parking space. Developers always want breaks on the amount of parking they have to provide with their projects. The county standards are, we learned in the valley, are below what is really needed by projects. That's a place you can look, but again, that's only going to help future things, not make things worse. It's not going to create new spaces. So I don't know. It's something I have experience working on. What I'm saying is I don't know the situation on the ground in Isla Vista enough to, you know, tell you tonight what the answer is.
Thank you. Mr. Porter.
Yeah, thanks. Parking in Isla Vista, obviously, I talked about it before, certainly a big issue. And I would say the way that the county approached analyzing parking, integrating it into the new the update of the master plan, how the Planning Commission handled it and moved it up to the Board of Supervisors was not good. Planning Commission sent it back once. It came back to the Planning Commission, and they did bless it and move it on to the Board of Supervisors. And still the parking element was so bad, along with the density element that was just out of control, caused the entire plan after spending $950,000 on the plan, dead on arrival when it got to the Board of Supervisors. Well, we just can't afford to do that anymore. If we're looking for a solution to parking, I think in a few months we're going to be standing up a community services district. One of their powers is parking, and I think that's the place to start. Let that be one of the places where the community services district cuts its teeth by involving all the residents of Isla Vista, and let's solve it that way.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
I'm actually glad that Bruce brought up the community services district and the idea of the parking district, because this is something that is, we're constructing a community service district here in Isla Vista, but we actually are not allowed to construct a parking district unless the county agrees, unless the Board of Supervisors does it. And so one of the first things I'm going to say is that I'm going to support constructing whatever the community service district thinks it needs from the powers that we've already tried to get it to it. So we're going to have the, things I've talked about, municipal advisory council, et cetera, but the parking district is one of them. And the reason why it's important to put the parking district at the community service district is that, so we had the meetings about parking with the Planning Commission and the community, and we weren't terribly happy with those. We ended up having a series of meetings that myself, Maia, and Bob Sumner ran in the community. We had a series of 3 meetings. We then reconnoitered with more meetings that we had from the AB3 Community Service District meetings. We had another 2 meetings there. We had a 3rd one where I gave a presentation on all the things that had happened so far. It's a hard problem. We kept coming up with solutions that would then make other people upset about parking. The best thing I can say, not the best, the happiest thing I can say is that maybe this is a temporary problem. If Google can give us those self-driving cars in another 5 years, we could just have them all kind of go park themselves somewhere. But we're but parking is something that is going to have to be solved as a local issue. It's something that we're going to have to actually sit down and work together with, and we're going to need detailed studies of. So like when Jones says that it's staff parking there, we don't really know that yet. And that's actually one of the things we said in our CSD financial thing we're going to do, is we're going to study who's parking.
Thank you. And that would be up to Ms. Jones, I think. Do I have that right?
Yes, and while everyone is studying and meeting about the parking, I believe innovation will be the answer, Jay. I'm old enough to just see how things play out, and most of the things we have our hair on fire about end up resolving themselves through some great innovation or some natural occurrence. We're really not in control of every single detail. I totally agree with Joan, and I applaud you for saying, let the people who are going to be involved in the solution have some say in it. I think that's very important. And sometimes the solution is going to make people unhappy. That's how it works. Not everybody's happy all the time. I am certainly not happy with every decision that is made that affects me, but that's how life works, and we compromise and we work it out. And I think that the parking solution will have to come from the college and the community working together. I don't know. And everybody stay in meetings, because the more you stay in meetings and do studies, the more likely something will get done while you're out.
I think we could probably get is that it for this questions? Everybody had a shot? The gray matter is kicking in. One last stand. I think we can get in 1 or 2 more questions, and then wrap up with the closing statements. This one, unfortunately, we can't get all the questions in. There's a lot of good questions we got this time. Quite pleased. In the long run, the county will go from reliance on fossil fuels to an economy that relies on renewable energy sources. The change cannot happen overnight. What energy sources and policy do you favor as a bridge? In particular, do you support continued development of oil or natural gas, including fracking? And let's start with Ms. Jones, followed by Ms. Hartman, Mr. Field, Mr. Porter, and Mr. Freeman.
I love oil. I love oil. And what I said earlier about things being politicized, oil is a great example. I was born in an oil town. I grew up on an oil lease, just not that far from here. This is oil country, folks. I've lived in California my whole life. The seepage is natural. And people get really just so crazy about oil. There's nothing wrong with oil. And a lot of these alternative energy sources rely on oil. Your electric car, who do you think charges that battery? So people need to just open their minds a little bit. Oil is a very efficient source of energy. I'm totally down with anything else. I like innovation. That's one of the fun things about getting older, is you see how all these things play out. And I can't wait to see how this one plays out, but I think oil is going to be part of the picture for a while. We need to be responsible about it. Fracking sounds a lot like another four-letter word, so I think that's why it's called that. But when you study fracking, study it from both points of view. Was it Josh Fox that did the very popular documentary? Read watch Frack Nation also, because my husband works in the oil industry, second generation. I mean, we have been around oil a lot. And so talk to a lot of different people. You'll maybe open your mind a little bit.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman, you're next.
Thank you. I oppose fracking. If anybody's seen recent Time article about what's happening in Oklahoma with the increase in earthquakes, fracking is the cause, and that's no question. We do not allow fracking here on county lands unless there is a more rigorous permitting process, but it may be occurring offshore, and that may be a big part of the seepage. They're acidizing fluids going in. We don't know exactly what it is. I think it's a very dangerous technology. I do believe oil is a transition fuel, but I read today an article, the Republican mayor of San Diego expects San Diego to be 100% renewable by 2035. The state of California expects us to be renewable by 2030, 50%. I would like to see Santa Barbara County be the first county to match what San Diego is doing. We can do it with community choice energy. We can do it with microgrids, with solar and wind power. We can do it here, and that's one of the greatest things I'd like to do as your supervisor.
Thank you. Mr. Field, you're
Brace yourselves, you might suffer some intellectual whiplash by the time I'm done. Well, I don't love oil, but I do like it a lot. My daily driver is a 500 horsepower supercharged 6,000-pound long wheelbase sport utility vehicle. I own oil stocks, I own oil pipeline stocks. But I'm also a water guy. And while oil might be the second most precious liquid on the planet in my mind, water is the most precious, and I am dead set against fracking. This idea that they won't tell us what chemicals they're slamming into the ground is unacceptable to a water guy. You have to know what you're testing for. They won't tell you, trade secret. Some of the chemicals we know they're using, there are no tests for, and when you detect the stuff in your water, it is far from a canary in a coal mine. It's much closer to a mushroom cloud because it's basically cost ineffective to try to clean up these aquifers. 30 seconds, I'll say I like oil a lot. I like restaurants a lot. I think we should develop both, and I think both should clean up their garbage at the end of the day.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman, is that right?
I don't think so.
No,
Maybe.
it's
I'll
not
move it.
right. Mr. Field, Mr. Porter.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I
did graduate high school. Yeah.
I think the good news is that the composition of the kinds of shale here, the Monterey Shale and other that we have here, is not very conducive to fracking, and maybe that's kind of saved us in the long run because we have not seen a lot of it in this county, and it's probably not economically feasible anyway. I think the key is, however this unfolds, and we will eventually move away from oil to something else, and maybe by 2035 or 2050 or 2075, who knows, science will advance. But we need to be really practical and thoughtful about how we move through all of that and make sure that we don't start breaking things before we know exactly what we're going to be doing. So right now, California is an energy island. California produces less than half the oil that it needs. There are no pipelines coming into California, so California either produces more or it imports more. And if it imports more, then it's coming a long, long way from Texas or North Dakota or Alaska or the Middle East, and a lot of it's coming from the Middle East. So if we're trying to make a practical decision about taking more oil out of Santa Barbara County or less, we need to think about, well, if it's not coming from here, where is it going to come from? And what's the cost of that? And where are we spending our precious treasure to buy that oil? So again, we need to be just real practical and thoughtful about how we do it and not drive our decisions based on ideology, but base it on science and engineering and thoughtfulness.
Thank you. And Mr. Freeman.
So I'm not certain that when we actually drill for oil here, that we get to use that oil here. So the kind of oil that you actually get out of the ground here is a very different kind of oil than what they drill for in Venezuela, and we have to have different kind of refinery plants. And so I'm not, it's great to say that, you know, if we stop drilling here, that then we're going to have to import more oil, but in fact, we're exporting our oil and then we'd be importing actual gasoline. Joan's answer was incredibly great. I'm just going to say. I've got maps to show it. So I love maps. So I'm definitely a supporter of community choice energy. So this is a map of different areas in California that have been working on putting together community choice energy, which is a program by which people can pool together their energy resources. The grid itself essentially becomes something that is run as a public utility, which is then buying power from different electricity providers and possibly also things like rooftop solar, which was mentioned. You can also then decide how much energy you're going to want to get from different sources. So if you want to say that I'm going to get all clean power today, you can buy clean power even though your neighbor's still only at 50% clean power. Another thing, since I've now got 20 seconds left, so this pipeline that was shut down, we took down this pipeline too. We have all of these areas that are offline. Really, it's not actually that big of a deal from our finances, according to our auditor controller. Unlike Kern County, which has 30% of their revenue from oil, we're only dealing with about 3%. And that's a figure that, by the way, Joan has said at every other one of these things. I'll say it, yeah, she likes to say that one. It's good. It's a good point. There you go.
Right.
Friendly.
Thank you. I missed the hug. I think we probably have time. We've used the last question, and it's time to wrap up. A minute for the closing. Okay, that was the last question. I appreciate all the good questions we got and the participation. We'll give each candidate a minute for a closing statement. Starting, we'll go in reverse alphabetical order. Let's do the closing statements, and then I have a couple of remarks to send you on your way, and we'll be out here. Mr. Porter.
Yeah, first of all, I'll say every drop of oil we produce in Santa Barbara County is used inside of California, and 3% of revenues of $700 million is $21 million, and that's nothing to sneeze at. But it's been a real pleasure being here today, and I hope I've been able to paint a picture for you of what I'm all about and what I think and what's really important to me. I've been an officer in the Army Corps of Engineers for 25 years, leading an organization with complex and difficult missions, managing some really challenging environmental programs, protecting endangered species, and I've even led our nation's sons and daughters in the fight against tyranny and oppression. In education, I have 2 master's degrees from Stanford, and I've taught university classes in computer science and mathematics, and I'm on a school board now. And as a member of that school board, I've learned the intricacies of public education finance, built relationships with unions, and perhaps best of all, I've helped graduate 99% of our students. As a member of the Red Cross and the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary and so many other organizations, we have 2 minutes?
We were told we were going to have 2 minutes in the group. He said 1 minute. Well, that's why I'm just defending Bruce there.
Okay, well, we have hit the deadline. How much can we go over, Larry? I have time. We'll give you. Can we do 2 minutes? It's to be fair to the candidates. If you were told that 2 minutes and we've got the time, take 2 minutes.
Okay, I was surprised when you held up that red sign, so thank you. Anyway, you know, I've been able to be a part of these great nonprofits, and I've learned the power of good people with good hearts working together to cure disease and care for the displaced and reach out a hand to folks that really needed it. And we've been able to weave together more tightly the fabric of our communities so that what results is a rich and vibrant tapestry. And as a husband and father, I could not be more happy that we came here to finish raising our kids and live great lives. I think I've shown you I'm an independent thinker, not afraid to be both innovative and practical. And as a part of that, it's really time to break the cycle of neglect here in Isla Vista. Let's get on with business and finish things.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
I am the candidate that I believe is the most transparent and the most independent. I'm not bought by either of the two political parties. There's no expectation from anybody who's given me money. Every penny I've spent on this campaign was earned by my husband, and that is one of the financial impacts of shutting down the pipeline. There's a lot of guys out of work right now, and so they're feeling 100% of the financial impact. But I'm not running for money, and I would like to serve as supervisor without pay. And if I could get the whole board to do that, that would be wonderful. That would be a good place to start, because I don't think you can talk about service and have a paycheck attached to it. That's not service. I also think it's really important that if you are serving on nonprofits, I serve on a nonprofit board, and you see me down there working at the thrift store. I'm not on the board moving money around, and I think it's important if somebody is saying that they manage money for nonprofits, we need to know what nonprofits those are. I think that's something that needs to be disclosed financially. I'm transparent. I will work for each and every individual constituent in the 3rd District. Nobody owes me. Nobody owns me. I don't owe anyone. It'll be completely free and the way government is supposed to work, without the expectations and without anybody being bought and sold.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman.
Thank you. A couple of things I just wanted to mention about oil. First of all, the ban on oil was lifted by Congress, and so California can now export its oil. And the second thing is it's the drop in prices, the market prices, from $150 to under $30 a barrel that's had the big impact on people's jobs and the economy. So turning the page, 69% of the voters in the 3rd District don't have a city government. So the county government is their primary government, and the county supervisor is their primary elected official. So understanding that, I've made a commitment that any constituent call or email to me will be answered within 24 hours. Responsiveness of government is critical, especially local government. Another key task, and I think people don't fully realize with all the meetings and things that supervisors attend, all the different organizations they have to be a part of, a key part of the job is to be someone who brings the various parties together. I'm particularly well suited to do that in the area of water, where it's desperately needed. The county is the lead agency in the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, and that is something that it has not stepped up to the plate. It's been kind of foisting it off to different water districts, and we need to manage our water regionally and much better. The other thing that is important to know about a supervisor is that you have to use your own personal authority and influence. We've seen Supervisor Farr, for example, working on trying to develop business associations in Guadalupe and helping along in Isla Vista. What do people need? What do they want? How can she use her staff, her whatever abilities to respond to those needs? And that's my commitment as well.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
To quote The Independent, Jay Freeman campaigns as if he's having the most fun in this race. I absolutely am having a lot of fun doing this, and I think that's one of my biggest strengths. I don't find meetings to be a chore. I have an optimistic view of what is possible, and I truly want to hear what everyone has to say. Further, I want everyone to have a voice, and that's something I fought for in various ways through my last 2 years of active service to this community. I am not the establishment candidate. I do the work. I put in the time. I've been doing the hard work of real community organizing. My campaign has been truly grassroots, not astroturf. I don't just show up for the victory lap and get on a group photo. I've devoted 1,000 hours over the course of a year and a half, and even then, I don't assume anything. I don't just show up to an event for hours to make rounds and then pass out some pamphlets. I spend 2 hours moving sandbags, first to keep the event from blowing away, and then to pitch in on the teardown effort. I don't just attend the larger neighborhood events where I know a reporter will be present. You'll find that I've already been involved in the process for months, having spoken before various boards on the topic. I want to tackle the hard problems. In the areas where I don't know much today, I want to learn all the angles and not just depend on what my friends think. I want to push the board to follow through even when the going gets tough. We need to stop kicking the can down the road. Finally, I want to remind us all that we live in a new world of technological opportunity. We need someone on the Board of Supervisors who doesn't just use technology, doesn't just understand technology, but is currently connected with the state of the art and knows when and how it should be applied. Essentially, I'm already doing what I can, and I want to be 3rd District Supervisor so I can do even more and move our entire county towards a brighter future. Thank you.
And Mr. Field.
I'm probably going to be speaking for all of us here with some of my extra minute, but thanks to you guys. This is flat out by far the best forum we have had yet. I'm not sure Jay's the only guy having a lot of fun up here. I don't. But I think that's a healthy thing for all of us who are having fun. Jay is quite right about his participation and activity here, but you may notice there's a bit of an age difference between us. He's been doing this for 6 months. I've been doing it for 12 years, and starting with the Sandy Inez Valley Community Plan. As Ronald Reagan said, I won't hold your youth and inexperience against you. Seriously, I honestly believe that I am the most qualified person up here on the issues that have to do with community determination, with finance. Another issue that I want to get to, which Karen brought up, is the money issue here. One of the things I detest in politics is the influence of money. And for federal office, you can't contribute more than $2,700. To a state office, an individual or corporation can't contribute more than $4,200. In local Santa Barbara County politics, there is no limit. You should look at where the candidates' monies are coming from. 3 of us are clean. 2, you really should look at their investors. They're not putting up this money out of a fondness and a hope to have a lunch together someday. You know, the power brokers hook their wagons to the horses that they think are going to pull them. I'm not taking more than $900 from any individual or any corporation. If I'm elected, I will try to make that the law in Santa Barbara County. It's negligent for this county to not impose campaign limits. Other counties and cities have. I'd love to be your supervisor. Thank you for coming. You guys made this the best one yet.
Thank you again. Thank you for coming, and thank you for the candidates for a most interesting, and I must say civilized civil forum. Appreciate it. Thanks to Larry Nimmer for the video, Gary Atkins for sound, Sylvia Uribe for translation, the Isla Vista School for the facilities, apologies for the restrooms, and all the volunteers for the League of Women Voters who help with this forum. There will be a League of Women Voters sponsored 1st District Forum, probably not as much fun, at the Franklin Elementary School on the Santa Barbara East Side on Mason Street on this Saturday afternoon. We will sponsor another 3rd District Forum next Monday, May 2nd, at the St. Mark's Church in Los Olivos, co-sponsored with the We Watch and the Santa Inez Valley Association of Realtors. I understand the Independent and the Association of Vintners are conducting a forum tomorrow night at the Cork Hotel in scenic downtown Solvang. They haven't decided whether to serve the wine before or after the forum. There's serious lobbying going on. And please, make sure that you're correctly registered to vote, the right address, and that you vote. The deadline to register is May 23rd. And if you're an independent, make sure you register as no party preference, not American Independent Party, unless you want to join the American Independent Party. But if you're a true independent, check off no party preferences. Really, do it. Your vote matters. Register and vote, and please drive safely. Good night.